This is a quick intro of some introductory surface commands in Rhino, help you all get going on this exercise, and I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of these. Um, First one is simple extrusion, and what I'll do is I'll name the command and then I've got a shortcut next to it. I often use the typed in shortcuts, but I'll also pull it down from either the menus or the toolbars. So here, extrude is over here, and type it in. And that one's pretty straightforward. Similarly with Loft, you can build a surface between a series of profiles by pre-selecting all of those, typing in Loft, and there's a number of different settings that you can try out for that. Getting into more complicated ones, and I think that you'll find this really helpful, is building a surface from a network of curves. And this typically works with up to, say, 4 edge profiles. What you can do is pre-select all of these, and then it's this one right here, and you'll see that the program will figure out the surface that goes between all of those. For something a little bit more complex, oftentimes if there's more than 4 edge curves, that previous command won't work, and so patch will work, and that's this one right here. And what's interesting about this is if you turn the control points on, you'll see that it's actually building a much larger surface and then trimming it. Sweeping is always handy, and that's basically taking a rail and sweeping a profile along it. So there's 2 types. We'll start with the sweep one, pick the rail, and then pick the cross section. And then a better one for our purposes is the sweep 2, where you actually have 2 separate rails. So pick the first one, pick the second rail, and then pick the cross section. And the order does matter. And that's going to help you get to some more interesting, more complicated surfaces. Surface from 2, 3, or 4 edge curves. Similar to what we were showing before. This one's a little bit more limited, but it can be handy. It's this guy right here. Revolve is going to take a profile and then basically spin it around an axis. So here, this is my profile, this is my axis. Just type it in, revolve, select the curve to revolve, hit enter, and now it's asking me for the revolve axis, and I'll just reference this line that I've got. And so you can do it for a certain degree. I'll just do it for 360 degrees. And then once we've got these surfaces, so let's say we've got this guy as a patch. Oftentimes what we'll want to do, if we've just got the surface, we'll want to extract curves from it. And we can do that by duplicating edges, going around, and just picking the edges that we want. And then when we delete the surface, those will be at our disposal. We can use those for other work. And if we want to start to flatten these things out, if we've got something that's 3-dimensional that we want to project down to a 2-dimensional orientation, what we can do is we can project to construction plane, and we can take that and go project to C-plane, delete input objects, we'll say no, and so you'll see that that is basically projecting this straight down. Curve from 2 views is really handy, and what that'll do is if you've got a view in elevation, a curve in elevation, and then a curve in plan, like this one, it'll figure out the 3-dimensional curve that goes between them. So pick that, go up to the curve menu, choose curve from 2 views, and you'll notice that it matches, the resultant curve is going to match the plan curve and the elevation curve, and that can really help you figure out some of these like kind of more difficult 3-dimensional shapes that we're going to be working with. Divide is always handy. Select something and type in divide, choose the number of segments, and then from that we can start to use those points to help build other things. We can rebuild curves. In this case, we've got something that's kind of smooth and has a number of control points. If we rebuild it, we can change its degree. In this case, it's set, so over here it's telling me what we've got, and then on the right it's giving me options to change it. So if we change the degree from 3 to say 1, suddenly this thing's going to become very faceted and angular. If we rebuild it again, switch it back up to 3, we get that curve back. And if we turn the control points on, we can actually manipulate the number of points. So if I were to put in 20 control points, then suddenly it's going to give me a lot more control over the shape of that. So in terms of control points, you do that with F10, and then once you've got those control points, you can start to move those around and manipulate both your curves and your surfaces. So rebuild and control points works for both curves and surfaces. It's similar to editing points, having edit points on, which you can actually get to over here. But that's going to give you points that are on the curve as opposed to points that are off of it, like the control points. And then lastly, if we want to start to control construction planes and move things relative to an alternate construction plane, we can do that. First, what I'll do is I'll make my construction plane visible by going up to Tools, Options, Grid, Show Grid Lines, and such. And now when I come back here, so you can see that my grid is on and it's at the origin. But let's say that I want to manipulate this curve and I turn its control points on. The thing is that if I want to just move that point, what's going to happen is that it's going to move it relative to the construction plane that's already set, which is the basic one. But if I wanted to actually move it relative to the orientation of this curve, what I'll have to do is reset the construction plane. So I can do that by going up here to Set C-Plane, choosing Object, and then clicking on that. And you'll notice that now my plane is set to that. So if I turn the control points on again, and I start to move that, it's actually going to move it relative to that construction plane. And then if I want to go back to what I had before, I just go to World, Top, and then it's going to go back to the origin over there. And then lastly, anytime that you have questions about any of these, the best thing to do is to just initiate a command and then hit F1, and it's going to bring up the page that describes how that command works. And so you can use that for any of these just to learn more about these commands, and it'll really help you work through them.